friends were playfully telling him to watch his back because I was cheating on him. But then... Hello, Reddit. My name is Alora, not my real name, but for the sake of privacy. Every other name I'll be using here is also fake. I'm 26 years old, and today was supposed to be my wedding day. Yeah, you read right. My wedding was supposed to be happening, but I ruined everything. With my own hands. People say you don't know what you have until you lose it. Whoever wrote that quote was so right, and right now the quote really expresses how I feel. Let me tell you how it all happened. As I said earlier, I am 26 years old and I lived with my parents, mom and stepdad and my 2 half-sisters, before I moved out when I got my job. I worked in an insurance company, and I was very good at my job. Right from when I was a kid, I had always wanted to get a job at the biggest insurance company. I guess I loved the feeling of security. Maybe that's what probably brought my own doom. I think wanting to have a sense of security might have come from my parents' failed marriage. My mom and dad had met and gotten married in a shotgun marriage because mom became pregnant with me, and her dad did not want any grandchild born out of wedlock. They were married for 9 years, and how they lasted that long, I wouldn't know because they were always having issues and would always fight over little things. And as a little child then, it was awful seeing them fight all the time, and at that time too, we were dirt poor. Dad brought barely enough, and when Mom asked or complained especially about his gambling habits, he would get angry. It wasn't fun as a kid having to watch your parents tear each other down with their mouths and not minding that you were right there with them. And the worst thing was, especially when your neighbors then had the perfect family, it made it hit home more the fact that your parents weren't good examples of parenthood. They wouldn't fight as my own parents did, and all the time I saw them laughing and playing even with their kids, despite the fact that it was obvious they were only slightly richer than we were. They still always had smiles on their faces. I envied their family then. In fact, I secretly began to wish I was one of their kids, so I usually would watch them from afar and smile to myself, wishing I had what they had. Sometimes they would invite me over to come eat with them, and I enjoyed those times so much, I began to eat less at home and stay outside so they could invite me over every time to eat at their place. The day my mom found out, I remember she was very unhappy and she actually hit me. I still have the scar to show for it. Ever since then, I stopped going there and just settled to watching them from afar. When Mom and Dad eventually got divorced, I was relieved and at the same time anxious. Dad got married almost immediately after the divorce, about 2-3 months after, and I became a third party to his new family, as his new wife hated me and never wanted me around, and Dad wanted to please his new wife, so you can imagine how it must have been. So it was literally a vicious cycle, and I hated having to visit them until I eventually stopped going. Dad wasn't bothered and just sent money for my upkeep as required by the court, but he eventually stopped even doing so when Mom got married. Mom met my stepdad when I was 12, and I was happy for them because he showered me with so much love and treated me specially. I was over the moon when they announced that they were getting married because that meant I had a dad again, and I was firmly secured in a happy family, one I had always wanted for so long. I fell in love with insurance when I heard about insurance for the first time. I knew instantly that was what I wanted to do. We had already moved into my stepdad's new home, and his sister had come to visit. She was talking animatedly about her job, which was insurance in a banking setting. I remember listening in like I was the one being spoken to. I didn't want to do anything else. The thought of securing just clicked in my head, and that was that for me. I was 13 when Mom became pregnant with one of my stepsisters. I remember feeling jealous and scared that my perfect little cocoon could be broken at any point now because of the new baby. And I remember praying for the baby to go away. I didn't want to share my stepdad with anyone, so I began to do what teenagers do at that point by lashing out and misbehaving. My mom and stepdad called me out several times to ask me what was wrong, but I wouldn't say and just continued to get in trouble both at home and in school. It was until my mom gave birth that I changed. I fell in love with the baby and was so protective of her. If she was reading this, she'd probably be shocked because I never told her anything like that. I was always this person who craved a sense of security, being safe in everything, how I spend money, the relationships I eventually got into, and everything else. My relationships never lasted because once I realized they had itchy feet and didn't want to settle as much as I wanted to, I let them go. Going to college, I ensured that I peeled my eyes down, looking for the perfect guy who would sweep me off my feet and be the perfect family man, not like my dad. It was hard because it seemed like all those guys who came to me were boys, literally. I couldn't even find any features I wanted in them, so I rejected them almost as they came. I was even secretly called an ice queen because of the way I rejected guys. Rita and Isabella were the only ones I was very close to amongst all the others. They understood me and what I wanted, though they were still against the way I chased the men around me, worrying I might not find any guy to settle with eventually, because according to them, my standards were too high. Well, let's just say they were wrong. I did find somebody that fit all of what I was looking for. I guess you could say he ticked all the boxes on my list. I had graduated college by that time and was already working in my dream company, and amazingly, I was climbing the ladder of success quickly because in 2 years of working there, I was already promoted twice. Rita and Isabella were literally still at the same level we all started with because we worked at the same company. I started to feel like I was too good to be their friend, which now I regret so much. Those stupid actions of mine eventually caused me to lose a lifetime of friendship. I remember I would brag and tell them how easy it was for me to be promoted and how it was being whispered around that I could get promoted again because of how many clients I was bringing into the company. I would even brag about how much I was being paid and how I was just able to cater to myself. Thinking back to my actions then, I really can't help but laugh and sob at them. It was my 3rd year of working in my company that I met Sam. Sam was the gentlest. Permit me to use that word even though it doesn't exist, but because it fits what I want to describe to you guys. He was just my perfect fit. I mean, he literally ticked off all the boxes on my list and more. I met him at an annual party we do in our company, where we invite people under the guise of coming to have fun, but it was actually a means to persuade people to get insurance. So as usual, I was looking for the next big target that would probably secure the position I was eyeing at work, so I was literally on my A game that evening. And I was still doing that when I bumped into someone holding a glass of champagne, which splashed on my beautiful dress, which I had just gotten. The dress was expensive and almost made me penniless, but I had to look my best that day. I yelped angrily and was about to lash out at the person when I saw who it was. It was Sam, one of the richest in town. Sam came from old money, literally. His family was one of the richest in that city and owned different companies, most of which were managed by him. Then, words had it that he even managed to expand their businesses beyond what it had been, and that he was extremely successful and one of the most eligible bachelors. So I was quick to remove the frown and swallow the cuss word on my lips, and managed to quickly replace it with a shocked smile. He apologized profusely and offered to pay for dry cleaning services, which I refused politely and claimed I was as much at fault as he was as I was distracted. I offered to go try drying off in the restroom and quickly left to do so. My head was already calculating just how delightful it would be to get him to start insuring his companies with our company. And I remember laughing excitedly to myself in the restroom while trying to wash off the stain and drying it with the dryer, because it meant my promotion was definitely secured. A lady had come out of one of the toilets and looked at me weirdly and left, but at that point my head was calculating figures, so I didn't even spare her another glance and just continued to chuckle. By the time I arrived back at the party, I sighted him and headed straight for him with all smiles, telling him I was all good, and he then apologized again, which I brushed off as nothing. I started to introduce him to our company and speak about all the benefits involved for both parties if he did get his companies insured with us. He had laughed then and told me that he hadn't had anyone walk up to him and start straight away trying to get him to invest. Every other person had been trying to beat around the bush when it was clear what they wanted. He had said then again that I was brilliant and smart, and that he liked that. I remember clearly that evening that we had parted with a promise on his side to change companies to ours. I remember being over the moon and giddy with excitement about the next big thing happening for me. Sam had done as promised, and yes, as expected, I was promoted at work, and I loved it so much that when Sam had asked me on a dinner date to celebrate my promotion, I had willingly obliged. At that moment, my thoughts were, I really ought to celebrate, and then there's a rich guy willing to pay for my celebrations. So why not? Honestly, at that point, I hadn't been thinking about dating him until that dinner date he took me to. It was fun. He made me laugh and was a very polite person. He spoke with good diction, and he was clearly someone who knew what he was doing when he started to explain how his business works. Then and there, hearing him speak about his work with so much passion had me imagining starting a family with him. Particularly when he spoke about his family, I decided I was definitely going to date him. Funnily, he hadn't even said anything about starting a relationship with me, but I was just so determined to date him that from that day forward, I started giving out hints of that, and Sam, despite how smart he was with work and everything else, was not so much good at reading the signals I was sending his way. It took a while before Sam eventually asked me out, and I was so happy, and I remember going to Isabella and Rita's place, because they stay together, to brag about my rich boyfriend and how soon we were going to get married. Well, it wasn't like that as much as I wanted it. It took 2 years of dating before Sam finally popped the question, and I was over the moon that night, I remember. Not because he eventually asked me to marry him, but because I had succeeded in snatching myself a good man who was also rich and could afford my lifestyle easily. I remember I had by then, regrettably now, not then, cut off my family. I know what you're thinking, but no, it wasn't like that, and in my head it made sense to do so then. The reason I cut them off was because back then, about a year before I met Sam, my stepdad lost his whole lifetime's work and his house because of a loan he had gotten from a bank to invest in a business, but he was scammed and he lost everything. Well, that brought up me taking care of them. I mean all of them. Mom, stepdad, and my 2 half-siblings, and it was taking a bit too deep into my money. I knew instinctively that if I continued, I would never have the savings I needed or be able to indulge myself. So I at first moved out, lying to them that my office demanded I move into the rooms allocated for staff, and then I stopped picking anyone's calls. They didn't know where I moved to, so it was quite easy, and I changed my number. At first I felt guilty, but I shrugged it off because I did not need a liability at that point in my life. Sam would always ask about my family, and I told him that my parents were divorced and married to different spouses, and they cut me off. I didn't lie, but I only tweaked the truth since I was the one who cut both of them off, not the other way around. But Sam believed me, and our relationship was quite the sweetest. Sam was a romantic man, and I loved him very much, but I started to get anxious when we had been dating for a year and a half, and he hadn't even proposed or talked about marriage. So I started to initiate conversations that would eventually lead to discussions of marriage, but Sam was always being evasive. I was getting frustrated and annoyed with it all because I couldn't even react so I wouldn't lose him. So I devised another means, and I stopped using contraceptive pills when we had sex. I convinced him I was taking them, and he didn't have to use protection whenever we were caught in the moments, which I purposely initiated, and in fact, I usually used tablets in front of him so he could be rest assured, but unknown to him, they were just vitamins. I got what I wished for when I became pregnant. Of course, I pretended to be shocked and alarmed by it, but Sam was really happy, and he told me he had been planning a proposal party for me before that. But he could as well do that now, and turn the proposal party into an engagement party. I was excited and surprised, really. He went to his locker and then brought out a beautiful small box, went on one knee, and proposed to me, and of course, I said yes. It was a blur after that because I decided to plan my engagement party, and because I was pregnant, I decided to quit my job and stay focused on our lives ahead. I wish I hadn't, though. I invited everyone from my former workplace, and also my friends Isabella and Rita, and then some of our college friends that we still kept in touch with. I was happy. The life I had carefully designed for myself was coming true just the way I wanted. But that happiness was short-lived. Sam and I planned to get married a month after the engagement party, before I started to develop a baby bump. So everything was going accordingly. I got to plan a beautiful wedding for myself, and I wasn't going to let myself down. I was very involved in the planning process, the money dispensing, and in fact, I was the planner myself. Everything was going so well and perfectly, just until the so-called party. Something that changed my life for the worst happened. I literally lost everything I've carefully built. I'm sure you're curious what went wrong. Well, it so happened that in our 2 years of being together, I had never really met Sam's friends. It's shocking, right? But Sam was a really busy person, so any time we got together was just to be by ourselves and have fun alone, as we didn't get that much often, and his friends that he told me about were usually as busy as he was, so he just mostly spoke to them on the phone and about businesses, so I was never really interested in the conversations, so I just excused myself to go do my own thing. When he told me that they were coming for our party, I was pleasantly surprised and happy because that meant more important persons were coming to my party and would show everyone just exactly who I was getting married to. Well, so the D-Day came, and I was putting on the most expensive dress I could ever buy. It was a blue low-cut dress, and it reached my knees and swerved softly when I walked, and my golden glassy shoes were glistening. In fact, I had Sam buy me jewelry, and they were expensive. Well, maybe if I wasn't so obsessed and concentrated on the party arrangements, I would have noticed that Sam wasn't his usual self 2 days prior to the party. But I didn't, of course, because my perfect life was playing out in front of me, and anything else didn't matter. Well, the party started out pretty well, and I was being congratulated from everywhere until my cheeks were starting to ache from smiling too much. Sam was beside me, but he wasn't behaving like his usual self, and I remember I had made a mental note to pull him to one side to ask him what was wrong. I didn't want people thinking I trapped him into everything, and he was being forced. I wanted him to look madly in love with me so people could sigh with envy at my life. I had then put my hand in his arms, and he had unconsciously put his hand around my waist, and I smiled and was about to say something when 2 guys walked up to us, and Sam greeted them with a shake with his free hand. I was tense. Oh no, I knew both men. Sam must have sensed my tension, and he looked at me before introducing me to his friends. His friends looked at me, and before they could say anything, I stretched my hand and smiled and tried exchanging pleasantries, and then quickly excused myself to the restroom. My head was full. Those were Sam's friends? Of course he must have known them. They both worked in the same line. How stupid was I? What am I going to do now? Those were my thoughts that day. In case you're wondering what happened, Joseph and Mike were one of my clients, and how they became my clients was... Please don't judge me. They were initially Isabella's clients, and when she had told me excitedly that she was going to get a promotion if she could bring them over, I had been jealous and stole their numbers off her phone and eventually made arrangements to meet them individually. That is, I slept with them, in exchange for them to sign with me instead of anyone. I had no choice back then. I had to get that promotion instead. Yes, I know now that what I did was bad, but it was in the past. I didn't even know they were friends. I calmed down later and told myself I just had to get through the party by separating them, and then I'd address the issue with them personally. Having made that pact with myself, I left the bathroom and headed back to the party when I was waylaid by Joseph, one of Sam's friends. I panicked when he held my arm and pulled me back into the bathroom and into one of the toilets in it. He shouted at me and asked why I was playing games between his friend and him and how I got Sam hooked. I tried explaining things, but he wasn't done and asked me if the baby I was carrying was truly for Sam and not a means to tie him down with another man's baby. I was agitated and slapped him and told him not to ruin anything for me and left the bathroom. Sam had probably told them about the baby. I don't know how he'd react if he knew there wasn't even a baby to begin with. Yes, I deceived him and everyone else. I wasn't pregnant. I had honestly thought I was because the pregnancy test I did at home tested positive, but I had gone to the hospital, and the test turned out negative. But I couldn't bring myself to tell Sam because of how excited he was, and how he had already given the one thing I was desperate for, a proposal. So I had already planned to fake a miscarriage after we got married, and lie that it was probably the stress of planning a wedding that got me. But things blew out of proportion when I saw Isabella and Rita talking to Sam. Oh no, I had forgotten that Isabella knew exactly how I got the promotion, because back then she had confronted me on stealing her promotion, and I had then bragged that I gave them what she couldn't. I was doomed. I quickened my steps and arrived just in time to hear my friends playfully telling him to watch his back because I was cheating on him. But just then, his friends came around, and I instantly froze. Maybe it was my reaction or the guilty looks on his friends that made Sam pause and observe carefully. He turned carefully and asked me if it was true, but I was too shocked to even try and deny it. Sam folded his fist and turned his red gaze to his friends, and they didn't deny it too. Sam just turned and made for the door. That was what unfroze me, and I ran after him. By then, everyone was already staring at us and wondering what the matter was. I begged him to let me explain, but he wouldn't even listen to me, just removed his hands from my grasp and said the party was over and that he didn't want to see me ever again, as I was not only a liar, but a cheat. Apparently, he had tried to contact my parents so they could at least be present on our big day, and they had told him the truth. And he also knew I wasn't pregnant because he spoke to my doctor without letting me know. I knew I was so doomed, so I just started sobbing loudly, but Sam just looked at me with pain evident in his eyes and just turned and left the party and my life, it seemed. When he left, I turned to Isabella and rained insults on her, and she just smirked, listening to me. Probably because she knew she already ruined my life. Everybody was looking at me, and when I eventually realized, I just turned around and ran. My life is over. I lost my dream job. I lost my man, and I cannot even go back to my parents. Today is supposed to be my wedding, and I ruined everything with my own hands. Please help me. If there's any advice on how to fix things, please, I cannot just lose everything this way. Update. Hey Reddit, it's really upsetting how all this is going. I came on this space to express myself freely and to maybe get someone, even if it's not everyone, on my side. At least I explained my side of the story. The backlashing and not so much support I've received have made me so depressed. I really regret everything I've done, truly. I feel very sad and unhappy because I lost the best thing that could have happened to me. Sam was the best man in my life, but I lost him because of my stupidity. Sam doesn't even want anything to do with me at all. He blocked every means of contacting him. Isabella and Rita cut me off too. And I tried contacting my mom for moral support, but once she knew it was me that was on the phone, she ended the call, and when I tried again, she had blocked me. I'm just so unhappy. I can't even forgive myself. These past 2 months since the whole incident, I've not been myself. I've just been thinking of the what-ifs. What if I had not selfishly cut off my parents? What if they had tried to work out their marriage? What if I hadn't wanted to have a perfect life and family I didn't have when I was younger? What if I had not been so jealous of my friends and stolen their promotion? What if I hadn't slept with Sam's friends? I know everything would have been fine, but now all I'm left with is the what could have been. I wish I hadn't been so obsessed with having a perfect life and therefore making the wrongest decisions. Funnily enough, I even tried to go back to work, but my boss wouldn't employ me back. Remember, he was at the party and heard all I did. He probably didn't want his company ruined with a bad reputation. I don't blame him, but it actually eventually left me jobless and penniless. Suddenly, the whole fairy tale I had constructed was no more, and I didn't have my whole life planned again. I'm so sad and broken, and I regret everything I've done. Just how can I make anything better? How can I get rid of this guilt and this pain I wake up to and sleep with every day? I'm drowning in this black hole I dug for myself. I cannot believe I ruined my own life. Life has just become so much harder, and I can't seem to keep up. Nothing makes sense to me anymore. Did I mention that I actually was so desperate that I went to one of Sam's close friends to help me? But his friend wasn't even listening to me and asked that I take my leave. In fact, I went to Sam's house and company only to be kicked out like a stranger or some stupid beggar on the street. Earlier this month, I heard he traveled abroad from a mutual friend of ours who reluctantly divulged the information after much pleading. He traveled to head the office in another country, the name he had refused to tell me though, and would probably not be coming back for a long time. I cannot believe everything. It feels surreal, and yet I wake up to the same pain and guilt. I'm so broken and depressed. Update. Hello Reddit, it's been 4 months, 3 days, and 4 hours since I officially ruined my own life. Yes, I've been counting. That's all I have left to do, to count. Funny enough, I can't even get up most of the days, and sometimes I just want to give up. But who the hell is going to take care of me and my problems if I do? Life is just so difficult, and I don't have the slightest clue what to do. So I had no choice but to try and get a job, which turned out to be the hardest thing, as no one would employ me without a referral from my previous workplace. And that was very difficult to get, as I didn't exactly leave on happy terms. So I had to become a newbie, but no one also wanted to hire someone with no experience. And I was already exhausting all I had left on feeding and going for job interviews, so I had to get a job as a waitress. Funny, right? A big fall from grace to grass. I got fired twice from 2 different places because I was very clueless. But eventually, I got the hang of it, and I became an expert so I wouldn't be fired from my 3rd workplace. I tried several times to reach out to my mom, even go through my stepdad, but my mom was adamant and threatened to divorce him if he continued to be in touch with me, so he had to cut me off. It's really so depressing how I just totally ruined everything with my own hands. I know every one of you blames me for my stupidity. I know. I blame myself too. I feel so empty and hollow, and I know now I could have done things better. But obviously, through my meticulously stupid plans, I eventually lost everything. Now I know you cannot plan your life. You can plan a day, yes, or the events you want to occur in days, but you cannot plan everything about yourself. I tried, and I failed woefully. So if you want to learn from me that it's easy to become selfish, and it's also easy to lose everything you've ever worked for. Update. Hello again, Reddit. It's me again. Just wanted to express my feelings again, as it seemed everything and everyone is against me. I'm so consumed by regret and heartache. My world has crumbled around me, and I'm left to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, and now I'm so lost. I still remember the day I met him like it was yesterday. He was charming, kind, and had a smile that lit up the room. I knew at that moment I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him, but I threw it all away. I let my insecurities and weaknesses get the best of me. I cheated on him, not just with anyone, but with his friends. I had thought it wise then that I was being clever, that I could get away with it, that I could make those mistakes, and as long as they were just secrets, I would get to live my Cinderella lifestyle. But secrets have a way of coming out, and when they do, it ruins you, your reputation, and even people you love. I remember when Sam found out how he looked. I saw the pain in his eyes, and it killed me. I knew I had broken him. He couldn't forgive me. I wouldn't if I were him too. He left me, and I don't blame him one bit. I would have left me too. Now, I'm left to deal with the consequences of my actions. I'm alone, and I have to live with the guilt of what I did. I wish I could go back in time and take it all back. I wish I could erase the pain I caused him and my parents too. I don't think I can move on. The world around me seemed to be moving, but personally my world was slow and dark, empty, and filled with pain. I'm stuck in this darkness, and I don't know how to escape. I'm not even trying to heal. I'm just existing, going through the motions of life without any purpose or direction. I'm numb, empty, and lost. Sometimes when I see couples, especially married ones, holding hands, laughing, and in love, it's like a knife to my heart. I'm reminded of what I had and what I threw away. I see his friends sometimes, I mean the ones I cheated with, and I feel sick to my stomach. They don't even acknowledge me, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't acknowledge me either. I'm a shell of the person I used to be. I've lost my spark, my confidence, my self-respect. I'm a cheater, a liar, a manipulator. That's all I am now. That's all that's left of me. I don't know how to forgive myself. I don't know how to move on. I'm stuck in this cycle of guilt and shame, and I don't know how to escape. I'm not trying to heal because I don't think I deserve to. I think I should be stuck in this pain forever. Maybe then I'll finally understand the gravity of what I did. It's hard to shake off the feeling of worthlessness that's consumed me, because now I'm just stuck in this abyss, unable to escape the gravity of my own regret. I'm a prisoner of my own mind, trapped in a cycle of self-blame and self-loathing. Sometimes I try to remember the last time I felt truly happy, truly alive, but those memories are distant now, faded like a dream that's hard to recall, because then I'm struck hard with what I did to ruin my only chances at happiness. I'm not even sure who I am anymore. I'm a stranger to myself. Most times I cannot even properly look myself in the mirror. So I'll just sit here, in the darkness, surrounded by the echoes of my own regret. Maybe someday, somehow, I'll find a way out. But until then, I'm trapped, lost in the labyrinth of my own mind. I know I need help, but where to get it from, I wouldn't know. Isabella is getting married in a few months' time. I saw it on social media. I know she purposely didn't block me so I could see with my eyes how happy she was. Because every now and then, she'd post herself with some captions that I knew were directed at me, but I couldn't even find it in myself to be angry because I actually caused the whole thing. I was responsible for ending our friendship with my stupidity, and now I'm paying a very high price for it. Rita had blocked me already and refused any form of reconciliation even when I tried to reach out to her. It was clear she hated me, and I can't even blame her. I'm not okay, and I know better than to even try to feel okay when I don't even deserve to feel so. Update. Hello, Reddit. This is my very last update here. No, I've not improved. I'm still as I was the last time I posted here. I don't feel better. Rather, I feel worse. I still do not have my friends with me. My mom still refuses any form of reconciliation, and she wouldn't even let me meet my sisters. I don't know where Sam's at because he still wouldn't talk to me. I'm still a waitress at a very stressful and demanding job with very little pay and not much choice. I'm still me, full of regrets, what ifs, and whys. Thank you, though, for following my story. Even though I know through the backlash that I got what I deserved, I still thank you for taking time to read through my post. My one and only advice, don't be like me. Thanks.